Alrighty, so we're plugging another movie in to the one-shot system. The movie that I saw today was Strays, starring Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx voicing dogs. It's also got the guy from like Last Man on Earth. I know he's in a million other things, and that's probably like the worst thing to say he's from, but he plays like the dirtbag dog owner in this movie. This movie, I mean, I have a lot to say about the experience I just had going to this movie. Some of it has nothing to do with the movie itself. So if you are willing to listen to that, you're going to see me kind of fired up because I'm still kind of a little bit fired up from the experience, but nothing like the movie itself. I'll get into it, but it's really nothing special. Nothing about the movie has got me this fired up. It's more about sort of the experience in general. But anyway, let me just jump into it. So first thing is, I went to a different theater than I normally go to. There's only two theaters close enough in my area that really make sense for the AMC, and they're sort of equidistant, but this one I would say is definitely, while it's supposed to be the bigger, nicer one, just based off the size of some of the theaters and the theater itself having like more concessions and things like that kind of set up. Like they had 6 different icy flavors versus 3 type of thing. But despite it maybe supposed to be the nicer AMC in town, honestly, I have to say that that area around it and that it's in, I'm not saying like the clientele, everybody there was just the same as you would see at the other movie theater as well. And it's only, it's equidistant from my house, so it's a similar sort of situation. But the strip mall that this movie theater is in is just basically filled with businesses that have recently failed, even like corporate ones. So the area itself is just not as great, and the way to get there is a little bit more inconvenient. So I'm glad that the other one is so nice. But it kind of sucks because this movie theater is the one that has all of the sort of alternate movies that the one that I normally go to doesn't have. So I guess I'll just maybe be looking to go on the weekend more or something like that, because maybe the experience is a little bit better. But walking in, same thing, I had my ticket ready to go from reserving it online. The guy that scanned my ticket today was weirdly like annoyed. I don't really know why. It didn't seem like there were too many people there compared to like a normal movie going time, and I literally had my stuff ready to go and nobody was talking to him before. Like I wasn't interrupting him or anything like that. But he just gave me like the nastiest stare. So, I don't know, maybe people just don't like long-haired people sometimes, but I think this person just really didn't want to be there. I would say like, I completely understand working a job you don't want to be at and stuff like that. Sometimes I felt that way when I was lifeguarding growing up. That's basically the job I did a lot of. Shocker, I guess. But I just don't understand why this dude was so mad, but I'm just gonna disregard that because that's not even why I'm fired up or anything like that. I don't really care about stuff like that. If you're negative to me customer service wise, it's like, I don't really care. I know I was nice to you, so it's just gonna make your day worse. I just don't really get it. There's a whole discussion we had about doing things with all your might, and like the Bible saying that, even though I'm not necessarily one to quote the Bible, but and also Marcus Aurelius saying that in Meditations, but that's like another entire conversation for another day, and I'm sure this person was just having a bad day. That's okay. Getting concessions, I actually had to use the priority line this time because there was a line of people at concessions. So I mean, I guess it worked. It was worth it to have the A-list or whatever, but it was kind of weird because the way they have it set up, it's almost like too red carpety, where you're just staring at this group of people and almost nobody else has a subscription. So you cut in front of them and maybe they've been there for like 5 minutes already. I'm personally, like, I know I shouldn't feel bad because I'm paying for that privilege, but I felt a little bit bad just because it didn't feel great to step in front of everybody, but the movie was already going through the trailers and stuff. I was a little bit late. So I honestly would have waited it out, but I was on a mission today and I'm not going to fail the mission. So we get into the theater, and let me tell you, this movie, this is important to sort of lay this out. But before I say that, let me just say, just to make sure I'm consistent, is that the icy flavor I got today was Coca-Cola. I did not get the green apple for the first time in like 4 visits. And it was nice to get the Coca-Cola again, but honestly, I think I might be turning into a fruit icy person. I never was one in the past. Like, dude, when I was really chubby growing up, I mean, you can ask any of the people I used to do club swim with. I used to get an icy like every day. And I got nothing but Coke or Coke mixed with something else, like cherry Coke, you know? Or sometimes Speedway has Mountain Dew, and you get Mountain Dew with like blue raspberry mixed in, get a little voltage situation. But I gotta say, while it was nice to be back with the Coke Icy for a little bit, I think I'll go back to green apple next time I go, mixed with blue. It's pretty good that way. But I keep looking away because, dude, I'm about to get into the thing that really just kind of blew my mind today, and made it really tough for me to go see this movie. But this movie is rated R, right? It's got Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx, and it's rated R, and it's supposed to be like raunchy, gross out, sort of way too sexual sort of comedy, because it's a movie about dogs, and dogs do all these little things that we just kind of don't really care about. But in context, if you're thinking about a human talking about doing them, they're disgusting. Like, you know, dogs are always licking their junk, they're always eating poop, doing whatever, you know what I mean? Dogs will be dogs. And this movie follows dogs that are acting like strays, so even on top of that, they're like doing all sorts of nasty stuff, being a stray dog as well. That is all fine. I have no problem with that. Like I said, I have no problem with the movie. I think that the trailers even go out of their way to let you know that this is a movie about talking dogs that is insanely mature adult content on purpose. And that's the joke. And so what has gotten me fired up today, and that blew my mind when going into this theater, and I don't really understand why this happened, because in everything looking into going to see this movie, try to understand what it was, because I almost saw it last week, because they played it on Wednesday early and called it like a hump day special, which I think is actually kind of funny and a little bit of a genius marketing thing in a way. Like, I didn't even connect it until I started watching the movie that it wasn't just hump day because it was Wednesday. It's because it's a movie about dogs that are like humping couches and shit like that. So, like, that's clever. But what really pissed me off and made it really hard to pay attention to the first maybe like 30 minutes of the movie was that in this theater, it was like me seeing the movie by myself. Maybe I know I just talked about it in the last one, but I was kind of thinking maybe I should make a video just to talk about like going to the movies by yourself and what that experience is like. I think that could go viral if I do some sort of weird like thumbnail clickbaity about it being some like positive message for loners. But that was sort of turning in my head in the theater as the trailers were going. But it was me by myself, an adult. There was a group of people that happened to be sitting next to me, like one seat in between over. I don't understand, cause dude, I got my ticket probably like 2 days ago, and there was nobody else other than one other person in the front that had their seat yet. I don't really know why you would purposely pick seats next to somebody else in a theater that's like pretty much not filled up. But that doesn't really bother me. That those people didn't bother me at all. They were fine. They didn't talk or anything during the movie or anything like that. Just a little bit weird. That is not why I'm upset. I need to focus for a second here. I'm just like when I say this, it's gonna be crazy. So it's me a group of adults next to me, and there's like, once the movie was over, I was able to tell that there were like one or two people, one or two groups of people on a date that were adults in the front. The rest of this movie theater was like 3 or 4 families with their kids at this movie. And if the kids were somewhere in like the 7th, 8th grade, maybe even, well, obviously high school would be okay. Honestly, we're watching tons of rated R movies in high school. That just makes sense. But it's like, if those were the kids, then I wouldn't even fucking care. Like, that's some shit. Like, people will go see movies when they're not 17, even if maybe they shouldn't. But as long as you're at like a certain age, you've already been exposed to stuff like that. So it's not going to be like damaging if you accidentally see the movie that is crude and outlandish humor like this. But that was not the case. The families with these kids, the kids were, I'm literally not kidding, were like, could 2 of the kids could not have been, like the family sitting in front of me, 2 of the kids could not have been older than 6 years old. Another one was like 8, and then they had an older sibling that was like 13. And the mom was there, obviously. And then the people in front of me, it's like I could hear like 3 kids that could not have been older than like 8 years old watching this movie. And that just blows my mind. Why did you bring these kids to this movie? Let alone the fact, the second the movie started, they're just talking at full volume the entire like first 20 minutes of the film, just like, about whatever a kid would talk about, because it's not even their fault. They're like 6 to 8 years old. They cannot handle being in a movie theater yet full time, and it's okay. You still take kids to the movies because, if you're gonna go see like the latest Pixar film, people kind of expect that you're gonna have kids like that in there with you, and it's just like a part of it. But dude, this was a rated R movie where within the first 10 minutes of the film, Will Ferrell's voice is saying like, "Oh, my owner loves to play with his penis, da da da, this and that," and like when I tell you this movie could not be more like in your face with cursing and sexual content and all that kind of stuff, which, like I said, that's totally okay. This is the type of film that we all thought it was going to be. So then why did you bring your 6 to 8-year-old kids to this movie? Like, they are absolutely not prepared to watch something like this, no matter how stupid it is. So just that fact, like, I don't know, have we fallen that far as a society that is something that people are like, oh, well, it won't make a difference? Like, dude, that's crazy. That is psychotic. Now, these kids may just walk out of the theater and they didn't even know what was going on. And, not a big deal. It's not like humans were having sex on screen. It was like dogs talking about humping couches and shit. But like, they're literally talking about this grown-ass man masturbating and smoking weed and stuff like that. Multiple times in the movie. So how could these people have ever thought that was going to be appropriate for their kids? And on top of that, it's like the trailers that are being shown, half the trailers are for other rated R movies that are horror movies, because like, oh, well, you're old enough to see a rated R movie, so even if this is a comedy, I'm going to show you the new Exorcist trailer, which, by the way, looks pretty good, side note. But I'm going to show you the new Exorcist trailer because it's a rated R movie. And now, I literally heard a kid like crying after that trailer went. Like, why are they there? I'm absolutely just appalled. I don't know how this happened. And let alone, if it was one family, I'd be like, dang, those people suck. But whatever. But the fact that it was like 3 groups of people that did this, that had kids that young, like, what is wrong with you people? They are not ready for that. And they probably won't be till they're like in middle school. And even then, at like 12 years old, the type of stuff that was going on in this movie and the frequency at which it was doing that, like, it's still inappropriate, probably at that age. But this is not an indictment on the movie itself, because the movie was perfectly accurate for the thing that it was rated for. It was rated R. But like, why are your kids in this movie? And if the trailers did some sort of marketing to make it feel like that would have been okay, and then all of a sudden it's this movie that's not like that, I would give them a pass. But because I was like, oh, this movie's happening? What is this movie? And I watched the trailers before I went to see the movie. None of them hide the fact that it is this bad at all. So you knew what you were getting into. Why did you feel like it's just... Anyway, that's why I'm fired up. I just think it's incredibly irresponsible, and I'm not trying to be like a prude, but just like, dude, the kids are too young for something like this. They're too young. They shouldn't be there. And it ruined my experience. I'm sitting here trying to mind my own business, but I can't help but fail to ignore the fact that there are people that are being like somewhat mentally scarred while they're seeing this movie. Like, it's just not appropriate. And if you're watching it at home and you have the opportunity as a parent to, if for some reason you're like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie anyway, like you watch movies like that in front of your kids and they're that young, I guess you have the ability to sort of selectively bleep out or, you know, cover their eyes or whatever during a part that would be too bad. But this movie is the type of movie where it's aiming to do that the whole movie, and that's the only gag it's got going. And so it's not like 1 or 2 scenes were too bad. It's like the whole movie. So it's just like, I just am completely surprised that that was the case. And it made it very difficult for me to even pay attention to this movie, because they're literally talking about the owner like masturbating and like using the verbiage of like playing with his fucking penis and shit like that. And I'm listening to, at the same time, a 7-year-old argue with their mom about if they got enough popcorn or not. It's just, I can't even understand why that's the case. I will say that after about 10 minutes of the movie, there was one family where the mom left the rest of the people, but they pulled the like absolute youngest kid out and left for good. But they sat through a good 20 minutes before they did that. And a lot of stuff was happening during those 20 minutes. I'm just so confused why they thought, because if you had to take your kids out like, oh, this is too bad, I can't do this. Like, did you not even, I mean, you took them into a rated R movie. Did you not even consider looking into it before? Anyway, I'm going to return to minding my own business, but it's just disheartening to see some of that type of shit in the wild, because those kids have no say in the matter of what they're doing today. They are just being taken to where they need to go by their parents, as would be by somebody that is completely dependent upon another person, like you are when you're a child. And to do something like that, like take them to that movie because either you wanted to see it or you could, I mean, dude, the Barbie movies in theaters, Blue Beetles in theaters, like there are so many other things that you could have seen instead. I'm just like very disappointed. That being said, now that I can get off my soapbox, so that's why I was fired up coming into the video. The movie itself, Strays, follows the tale of a dog voiced by Will Ferrell, Reggie, that has a terrible owner named Doug, and Doug is the worst kind of loser you can imagine, and he's trying to get rid of his dog that he treats like crap, and he leaves him in and abandons him in a city and drives 3 hours away, um, to leave him there for good. That was honestly kind of rough scenes for me to watch as somebody that's a dog owner and likes their dog a lot. I just can't understand why somebody would ever be mean to a dog, even if the dog is making mistakes, because the dog doesn't know why they're in trouble. Most of the time, they can only understand cause and effect for about 2 seconds after something happens. So it's like screaming at your dog never is going to solve the problem. But I know that's the point of the movie. So this guy's a terrible owner. I guess I'm just a softie for dogs. But the thing is, then the rest of the plot of the film is like he meets Tiny, this French bulldog that's voiced by Jamie Foxx. And it was kind of nice to see Jamie Foxx, even if just in voice, in a movie, because, I mean, it was rough there for a second when he was in the hospital. And it's glad to see that, you know, at least he's somewhat recovered and now he's got another movie coming out. I know that they probably did all this way before he was in the hospital, but that was kind of nice. Maybe think about like, oh yeah, he's doing all right. But then some of the other dogs were voiced by other famous people as well, but I'm just not going to get into that. The story is that they try to be strays, and then he's like, you know what? I do realize that I was in a toxic relationship with this owner, and this owner didn't like me. And we're going to go track our way back to my house, and I'm going to bite his dick off. And that's basically that's the mission, is to go back and bite the dick off. The movie's funny at times, even when I was trying to sort of not think about being annoyed that there were such young kids in a film like this. There were some parts that, even if the whole movie is super raunchy, it's like there were parts that were clever where, you know, they're making bits that are only possible when you're talking about through the lens of a dog. And that was pretty interesting, but it was just so, you know, it was just so all over the place and not extremely cohesive. And the jokes that were coming out, they were coming out rapid fire, and they were trying to be kind of quippy a little bit. And some of them landed, some of them didn't, like as strongly. I would think all of them were funny. It's just like surprising that the writing was so, I wouldn't say like bad, but just very standard, very normal SpongeBob in a way, but with obviously this dirty humor layer. Because I felt like the people on this film, at least in name, would have made it a little bit better, but it just really wasn't anything special. And you know, the ending is kind of funny. They accomplished their goal, to say the least. And there are some funny aspects of, you know, like dog culture in a way that are explored. But not to spoil too much about this movie, I would just say that it left a lot to be desired. And I feel like the premise itself could have been really good. But like just on the premise alone and the way that they were trying to deliver it, I was interested in this movie and I felt like it could have been really funny. But you know, if I'm thinking about the movie right now, having just come seen it, I can't think of any easy ways to fix it. Like sometimes when you watch a movie and you don't like it as much, you can tell exactly what's wrong with it. Like Downsizing with Matt Damon, you can tell that movie, the script for that movie must have been made, marketed, thrown in a blender, and then turned into something completely different. And you can almost pinpoint the point in the movie where everything got rewritten. And that movie sucks, even though I'm not going to do like a video on it, at least for a while, but because I'd have to rewatch it. But this movie, you know, I just couldn't put my finger on the exact thing that was wrong with it, and it's almost just like this is more of a streaming service quality movie. This should have been like a straight to Netflix sort of thing, and you could watch it on your couch, and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, that it wasn't anything that crazy because you didn't go to the theaters to see it. It's just surprising to me that a movie of this caliber is in the theaters. I just really thought it would have had a little bit more to it. But anyway, no reason to keep dragging this long, so I'm sure I've already been talking for like 20 minutes now with all the stuff that I had to say before. But if I had to rate this movie on the where should you watch it scale, I would say this one's a definitely watch it at home. It's not necessarily worth seeing in theaters. I mean, if you can, it's tough because I think this review's got to have an asterisk for the stuff I was saying before. So, you know, I think my gut is good on this, so I'm still going to review it. But I would say don't see it in theaters. If you absolutely need to see it because you think that this is the exact movie for you, then I guess go ahead. But it's really not worth it. It's like going to watch Grown Ups 2 in theaters. Like, you know, I did that because I went with my friends back in the day after a lifeguarding shift, and it was just a goof, and the movie was so bad that it was almost funny to be like, wow, this movie sucks. Sorry, Adam Sandler. But that movie is pretty rough. This movie falls somewhere in between so bad that it's funny, and it actually tried to be funny and it didn't meet the mark. And so for that reason, it just kind of sits in this valley, and there's not a lot of value to get out of it going to the theater. What would I rate it out of 5? I would say this is definitely a 2. I say this is a solid 2. It just doesn't reach a 3. If I'm thinking about, you know, like some of the movies that I even gave like a weak 3 to were definitely more enjoyable than this movie. Just in the way of like, they actually gave it a good college try in a way where it feels like they kind of just maybe threw this script out there and somebody bought it. So yeah, that being said, I would say it's a solid 2. Watch it at home if you want to see it, but not a big deal if you miss it. And don't take your kids to a movie like this. They're not ready for it at all. I don't know why that happened. So anyway, that's the review. Don't go see Stray in theaters. I would watch it at home. Sorry to anybody involved in that film, but that's just how I feel. So that's the review.